So cool. Thanks for joining me. Our tutorial today is going to be Natarajasana. And the reason that I picked this back bend is because it's so many other things all in one. So it's kind of the same shape as the splits, Hanumanasana. It is a standing balance. There's some forward fold in it. There's a big old back bend in it. And so that's why I chose it, so that we can look at all of these different elements and how to work on each element individually and then ultimately put them all together. So as far as learning goes, it's hard to just learn a pose. It's really good to kind of break it down into little micro goals and in order to figure it out. So Natarajasana, I was going to say, is the same as Hanumanasana, the split. So if you've been working on the splits, you've got one leg in front, one leg back behind you. Some people, if they are challenged with it, they sometimes think that it's because of the psoas or because of the hamstring, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to be because of the psoas muscles. So in the first video in Camel, we talked about the nervous system. In the tutorial that we did yesterday, we talked about the anatomy and how we are built differently. No two people are built the same. And so in this back bend, in this video, I want to talk about what are you really willing to let go of? And I don't mean just what you want to let go of or what you've said you've let go of, or even what you've intellectualized letting go of. Like, what are you really willing to let go of? Because these are a huge part of what lives in our tissues that will add to our limited range of motion. And there are a couple of reasons why. We might be attached to stories that we've had, experiences that we've had. Those stories and experiences might still be serving us in some way. But that is quite often when we're talking about the psoas muscles, it's where we store cortisol, where we store our stress hormones, and that will lead to that lack of suppleness or flexibility in the psoas muscles. And what we're really doing in Natarajasana is we're taking one leg up behind us. So we need that suppleness and that flexibility in those muscles. So my question to you is, what are you willing to let go of for real? And by letting go of it, it means you have to change the story. And that's sometimes the hard part. If you let go of the story, you can't talk about that story anymore, unless it's in a way that relates to someone else and helps them to maybe move along as well. All right. Complicated? Not so much. Let's talk about Natarajasana. There are a couple of ways to do it. Make sure you have a strap and a wall. The wall is your best friend, all right? We talked about the different elements: standing balance, a little bit of a forward fold, back bend. When we're working on those elements, it's nice to use my hard-boiled eggs are done. It's nice to use a wall for support so you can really focus on some specific things. So take a couple of minutes and think about what you're really willing to let go of. I don't mean like a whole list of things. Think of one thing. Maybe it's something that you've just always had to be right about. And are you willing to just yield a little bit to that? And then let's see what happens. Alrighty? I'll see you in the next video. All right, you guys, my eggs are peeled and in the fridge, and that is not a metaphor for anything, okay? So the first thing that we're gonna do is talk about the different variations and how to practice this. The first one is what I call baby Natarajasana. This is just where you are reaching back behind you, grab the foot or the ankle or the shin back behind you, and then you start to kick the leg back behind you, okay? So a really important element here is to learn where your foot is when you aren't looking at it. So if you always have to look back for your foot, then start practicing looking straight ahead and teach the feet and the hands how to connect when you're not looking at them. It's a huge part of the learning process. So you're going to reach back for the foot or the ankle. One of the rules that you might hear a lot in a class is that you have to have your hips square or straight, straight ahead. But in this version, that is false information, all right? In this version, you want to allow the hip to roll up. It's going to give you a lot more space. You're going to be able to get that leg back up behind you a little bit further. Now, I recommend that you keep the torso upright for as long as you can before you start coming into that forward fold. If you are focused on just coming into a forward fold, we've lost that sense of ground. So I want you to start by pushing down through whatever foot you're starting on. Keep the gaze straight ahead so you learn where your foot is without looking at it. We're going to talk more about that in the next video when we start talking about proprioception and stuff like that. So reach back for the foot or whatever you want. Let that hip roll up a little bit. Now start to kick into the hand and pull back with the hand and keep the torso upright for as long as you possibly can. If not, the whole time. There's no pressure to come into a really deep forward fold unless you're doing styles like Bikram or where that deep forward fold is really emphasized, which is fine, but get this other stuff happening first. You're going to kick and pull, keep the torso upright. When the forward fold starts to happen naturally, then you just want it to happen naturally. Okay, duh. So we have good balance days and not so good balance days. So if it's kind of a crappy balance day, just go to the wall. Use the side here of the shoulder so that you focus on other elements. You don't have to worry about the balance every time. You're not going to learn Natarajasana the first time you do it, right? Ideally, these poses that I'm going through in these tutorials, you spend dedicated amounts of time to just these poses, not just a minute in a class. The only way to really get anywhere with these things is to obsess and practice and really devote time to it. All right, so I'm going to use my shoulder against the wall here so I don't have to worry about my balance, and I can focus maybe on the radius of my back bend or how much of a forward fold I can come into. But keep kicking that foot way up. You want to always emphasize kicking and pulling between the hand. All right, so that is a baby Natarajasana. The next version is Natarajasana, where we would reach up overhead with both hands. And so go ahead and grab your strap. I don't actually use a loop for a strap. This was my strap from my mat. So I'm gonna get this loop out of here. Get a strap and don't put a loop in it, all right? So you just wanna make a loop with your hand halfway through it, okay? Now we've already learned how to find the foot without looking at it. So now it's even more important to be able to do that. So you're gonna reach back behind you, loop the strap around the foot, and then start to let the strap slide through the hand as much as it needs to until you can comfortably rotate the shoulder around. So much of Natarajasana is what the hell is going on in the shoulders, which we talked about a little bit in upward bow pose yesterday. So go ahead and loop the strap around the foot. Let the strap slide through the hand until you can reach up overhead with both hands. And now the hips are going to square naturally. Doesn't even need to be a thing. Don't need to be cued to do it because it happens naturally. Now you can kind of walk the hands up the strap. Now my recommendation here is that you are focusing on reaching up toward the ceiling, not getting the foot toward the head. Lengthen, get that extension in there. That's what's going to ultimately get your foot to your head anyway, and get you all the way holding onto your foot without a strap. All right, so let's do that again. So you can walk the hands up the strap, push through the standing leg, and keep the torso upright in this version. In this version, you're not gonna come into a forward fold. Keep reaching up. That's what's gonna get you further in it. You can do the same thing in this version by leaning against the wall, and then you don't have to worry about the balance. Focus on the radius of the back bend. So remember what I said, when you're doing the baby version, let the hip roll up. When you're doing this version where you have both hands up overhead, the hips are naturally gonna square. Shouldn't be a focus at all. It's gonna happen naturally. Think about what you're willing to let go of. Not just say you're letting go of it, but like really, and find something small. Like maybe you can let go of, you know, I don't know, something small, like how people drive, or don't go big, don't go with the current political climate. Like, what are you willing to let go of and start out small? I'll post a bonus video for this because I'm going to talk about some other poses that are just like this pose, and hopefully all of this stuff helps you. All right. Thanks, you guys. I hope this is beneficial for you.